The Fourth Amendment, as stated in the Bill of Rights, is the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects, against unreasonable searches and seizures, shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched, and the person or things to be seized. What do you think this means in practice?
In practice, in the modern world, I think it should guarantee rights of a U.S. citizen to privacy from a government that may wish to know their private things. So if the government wants to access really any sort of data about a citizen's life online, they should have to go through an actual warrant process.
I think it just means like people, like the property of people is like protected.
That in order for police or anyone to access your information, they must go through proper legal channels and through the court system to obtain permission to do so.
So even though it says nothing about, computers or whatever, in my opinion, though I'm not a constitutional scholar, turns out, I think the word effect should guarantee the right of a citizen to a degree of privacy from the government.
I think this means in practice is that law enforcement need to be held accountable to their actions. I mean, you can't just have random enforcers of the law basically perpetuate any of their own biases in society. I'm personally interested in social justice, and the Fourth Amendment is critical to social justice because it ensures, at least on a legal basis, maybe not in like a practical or actual basis, that cops can't just randomly pull over some person of color or can't randomly detain a dissident who might have a different opinion than the state. Of course, maybe that's not necessarily applied in practice, but I think it's definitely a really important part in ensuring accountability on the side of the government.
If police ask to search your belongings and you give no response, should this count as consent to search or not?
No, because they don't have a warrant.
Sounds like saying nothing is not consent. That's my understanding.
Giving consent requires, actually giving consent. You don't give consent by doing nothing. So to me, that's just a false equivalence. Yeah.
What is your opinion on the NSA metadata collection? Is it constitutional?
So in terms of them collecting data without the permission of people out there, it makes me uncomfortable in that I don't know what information they're collecting and what it's being used for. So it seems like it may be somewhat in violation of that amendment.
Boo. How do you personally? I feel as though the NSA has had broad overreach of what powers it should have with warrantless searches and the collection of metadata. I think that's pretty scary for any U.S. citizen that wants any degree of privacy.
I kind of get like both sides. Like I get it's not right to like violate people's privacy, but I also understand like the government said they were doing it because as like a security, as to defend like the country, right? Because against security threats and things like that. It's like I can see how like they're both sides. Personally, I don't like the idea of it, but I don't know.
To a degree, I think that Snowden is actually a hero. I think that in basically showing really sensitive but incredibly important information that is crucial to the American populace about our current breaches of freedoms and liberties, I feel like that was an honorable thing to do, and I feel that the NSA is maybe doing a little bit of overreach and maybe breaching our liberties to some degree. That being said, I also value order and stability. I think that's really important, but only to so far.
Recently in Congress, they voted down a measure that would have restricted the NSA. So that's an L. Yeah, NSA sucks. Boo. I don't think they work at anything other than stealing the privacy of innocent citizens. They don't actually stop terrorism. They just inflict terror on the citizens. I was supposed to rhyme. I'm sorry.
Do you think the government should be allowed to access your phone's location history anytime they want?
No.
No, not if you're just a normal civilian. Like if you're like under investigation or something like for a crime, then maybe. But like, I don't think like just like normal people should be subject to that kind of thing.
I feel like almost anyone can do that with like Snapchat now. So I mean, I don't know if it makes a difference about the government doing that too.
They would need probable cause, connecting it back to the Fourth Amendment. They would need some sort of substantial evidence that might like give them an idea that, yeah, this person might be a little bit of a threat. I do not believe in reasonable suspicion, which is very different than probable cause. Reasonable suspicion is like a cop sees a person that looks a bit shady, so they're able to like say, hey, that's not cool. Whereas probable cause is like, you're getting a tip from someone that, hey, something's going to happen. So probable cause is a standard that our law enforcement, our government should be held accountable to across the board.
What if the data could be used to catch criminals?
That's a really, I guess, good moral conundrum, because really it's a matter of balancing the liberties that we so cherish as Americans and then the safety that's really crucial in establishing order and stability in modern society.
If it's being used for like protecting other people, like taking a criminal off the streets, like then yeah, like if there's someone dangerous, then I think it's merited.
If they get a warrant, sure, but I think the government would easily use that as justification to go looking into any person's phones that they wanted to.
If information very apparently leads to like some sort of destructive capability that a terrorist might have, or some sort of opponent against the state might have, then it's up to the government. It's the government's prerogative to use that information to save American lives. But to the point where you're casting so wide of a net, I feel like the liberties that are being breached are maybe, I don't want to say equal to lives lost, but there's definitely something wrong with that.
I think that's first step on a pathway to the government having, whatever access they want to. Because if they use the justification of it could help stop crime, then there's nothing that they wouldn't do.
How much of your digital privacy do you think should be protected under the Fourth Amendment? Who should have access to the information of what you do on the internet?
Well, considering most of what we do on the internet is public, it seems like there's quite a leeway for what information is out there that is accessible by a wide range of audiences, not just legal authorities.
ISPs and like Google would have to, ISPs being internet service providers, would like have to have access to some of it. But any way that we can restrict that is better.
I kind of work under the like someone's always kind of watching over your shoulder thing when I'm looking things up.
I think that everyone can have access to the information I put out on the internet. So if I have a public Instagram or a public Twitter, then I think it's okay if people see that, right? But it's all dependent on what I put out.
Like forum postings and what you're doing on Facebook, Twitter, social media, all that should be publicly accessible. So I guess that's almost a consent to, if you know you're posting on a social media, you're giving consent that it can be used by anybody.
I typically have private accounts for certain things just because I like to regulate who has access.
I don't think that the government should necessarily have complete and utter control over our technology.
If it's a protected password and all that kind of stuff, that would seem like you're not giving consent for anyone to access that kind of information.
I don't think there's anyone who I wouldn't want having access to it. Not because I'm doing anything illegal. But I think I'm funnier than I am. But because I think that is how the government would go about the process of having too much control, or more than they should.